Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. 96 points a game. You've averaged that, over multiple years. So it's not just you had one great team, lightning in a bottle. You've been able to establish that type of culture with your team. So your favorite style to play and teach, what is it?
It's that. I mean, I grew up, my father, like I touched on, was a high school coach in San Antonio, and he got a job at it was East Central High School, and he got it in the early 80s. And when he took over, it was not a very good program. It was a program that had physical talent, but they were always undersized. They were always a smaller team, and he was playing against bigger, more physical teams. And after 2 to 3 years being there, we had moderate success. He came up with the idea of putting this group of guys in. He called them the Wild Bunch, and it was 5 guys. He'd put them in for a couple minutes, and they'd get out there and press and go and run, and the crowd would get so excited about that part of the game they couldn't wait for the Wild Bunch to come in. They would all kind of watch, and then when they came in, all of a sudden they were. It's like a new energy went into it, and something clicked in him, and he said, "You know what? I'm just going to do that. That's kind of what we're going to do as a team, because that's kind of what our personnel is anyway. It makes sense." And so I think in 1984, 85, maybe he adopted that. And so from there, he took like that school and that program to heights that it had never probably imagined it would get to, as far as the level of success they were able to have, not only like from a school standpoint, but what it did for the community, what it did to the city of San Antonio, how it kind of revolutionized the way basketball was played, and it was so different. And so I saw that, and it just always stuck with me. I saw it as a kid. I saw it when I played in it, and we had success with it. And it was always a way that I felt like gave a player the most opportunity to express themselves and be creative and play just kind of the game the way I felt like it should be played. And so, in college, I played a different style, had success. I just knew that when I started coaching, on my own, when that opportunity came, this is what I wanted to do. Now, how I would do it and the ways I'd go about it were going to be probably different than what we did in high school, and they are different. But the mindset's the same of pressuring for 94 feet, make or miss. And that's why response is so important to us, as far as our that culture pride talked about.
There's no time to
time. No, if you're celebrating a make, you're in trouble. If you're mourning a miss, you're in trouble. We spend a lot of time. My assistant a couple of years ago did a defensive breakdown and statted, where a majority of our turnovers were happening, where a majority of our positive plays, and so much came to our ability to guard after the initial transition, after make miss. Like the longer it took guys to get the ball in bounds, the more they struggled, the more success we had. And so we just, with our guys, we talk ad nauseum about getting to the next play because of how it impacts what we're trying to do defensively. And so, our offense comes a lot of times, if we're good, it should come from our defense. We should be able to turn eyeball turnovers into easier baskets, but we're going to practice that way. It's kind of why, again, the gassing out thing fits with us, because of the urgency of how we play. You just don't have time to relax and hope. Again, I mean, it like you said when we first started, as a young coach, you feel like it's going to work and you're going to beat everybody and it's going to be perfect, and you realize along the way, man, there's a lot of flaws to it, and there's a lot of you will. I've been humbled more than any coach probably needs to be humbled doing it, but I believe in it, and I think it's a fun way to play. I think it allows players to really, really get the most. Again, you got to recruit the players that fit it, but they get the most out of who they are, and it's not for everybody. People. We recruit guys say they want to press and they want to do that. And when we're doing it and they realize oh crap, you mean like we're doing this for 94 feet?
They don't realize how hard playing fast at the speed you're talking about is. Every coach says, yeah, I want to play fast.
Right.
How fast?
Yeah, how fast? Exactly. Like, right. And the other thing I learned from my dad and being around it is the idea that you have to be all in. It's hard if you're really going to do it. Like, you got to be willing. We're going all in. Like, rain, shine, whatever, win, loss. The minute you because it's all about imposing your will on somebody. That's what for us. It's all about. We're going to do our best, and not always successful. We're going to do our best to impose our will. Now, you may beat us at it, but we're going to impose our will or try to on the game and influence how it's played. So it's played on our terms. And if you're better than us, which, as I've said earlier, there were 10 games in a row last year where teams were better than us at it, then hats off. And we got to figure out why. But it's not going to be, we can't, because again, players are going to fight it because it is hard and it is different. And I feel like the moment you kind of budge and you kind of start, we're going to fall back, we're going to, you can kind of lose that. And so it's just kind of a battle of it's just a mindset, and it's something we work on every day. It maybe came to our practice, you would see it's just kind of who at this point, the one thing I feel like we've been able to establish in the time I've been here is that kind of takes care of itself. Like as far as the guys understanding how we practice, how we go about playing. Like it's still, we work on it, but it's not the struggle that it was obviously when you first get someplace and you're doing something different.
How long are your players able to be on the floor at any given time?
We looked at that. That's a good question. We've dabbled with 3 minutes, 4 minutes. We've looked at different periods. I think an indicator we talked to our guys about, really, if we're playing as hard as we should in a 40-minute game, you should be able to play probably 23 to 24 minutes.
Yep.
It's probably right. Like physically, if you're really gonna do what we're asking, and then now with that means you got to sacrifice, because that means the minutes you're playing are lessened, and you're not playing 32, 33 minutes.
But the possessions are more. So do you talk about that part? Because if they can grasp that and stop looking at the clock,
right,
they'll realize I can play for 24 minutes, but possibly get a quarter more possessions than what the dude down the road, down the highway is getting, playing 40 minutes a game, 35 minutes a game.
Yeah, no, that's good. We probably haven't focused on that enough, but I like that, and I'm going to use that, because that is no, that's good. No, that's something that it's a perspective that we probably haven't touched on enough, but I like it.
Yeah. My question then is, because I'm really excited to hear more about what you're doing. What are some of your influences? Maybe obviously your dad, but then also other systems that you've seen that you're kind of pulling from, or is this just something like your dad made it up, and then what are some things you're pulling from?
No, there's multiple. My dad, obviously, we talked about. My cousin, Coach Van Lanningham, Coach V, he coached at McMurray back in the mid '90s, and he did an unbelievable job. Then he was a head coach at Our Lady Lake for a little while. Did a great job with it there. And there's him playing for my dad. He took some of what my dad did and put his own spin on it, and from some of the mentors he had. And so I borrowed from him. We went up and played Whitman College 5-6 years ago, and Coach, we were up there in a classic, and we played on a Friday night. We beat I forget the team we beat. It was a team that was a decent team, and we played well. We shot it great, and we played and I felt pretty good about it. Kind of that. It was opening night, felt good about it. Well, I'd never seen Whitman play. I just had heard they were really good, and they've always been competitive and whatever. So I remember they were playing Sil Ross after us that night, and I remember I sat up in the stands and thought, "Oh my Lord, like we got no chance. Like these guys are really good. Like, man, I don't know if we're ready for this." And so we played them the next night, and Coach, they were just like, I've never felt more helpless on the bench because they were just coming at you, and they were relentless, and they were just like, and it was like, man, these guys, like, props. Like, after all I could say, I mean, like, that was impressive. Again, I was aware enough to know, like, okay, he is doing a much better job of this than I am. So I need to talk to him. And he's been great. I'm drawing a blank right now with the coach's name, but I spent that off season, I spent time on the phone with him, talking about kind of what they do, his offense as well, and just kind of how he taught stuff. And I went and studied their film on synergy that year. I mean, I was like, man, we gotta figure this, because that, in my mind, is how I want to, like, that's what we want to look like, and how do we get to that point? And so I had no issue calling him and trying to pick his brain and learn from him. So him, Jeff Evans, a coach at Amarillo, Palo Duro High School, he's a friend, but also, like, he's somebody who I get a lot from. I mean, he is so good at what he does, and he is so, I mean, the man's, what he does with what he has is off the charts. And if you see his team play, and it's phenomenal how hard they play, how the standard he holds them to. There's so many things he does, from how he watches film, how he coaches. Like, there are so many pieces of why he wins at the level he does, that he's somebody, again, we're at this point, you know, I talked to him yesterday. We hadn't talked in 2 weeks. I think it's probably the longest he mentioned, probably the longest we'd gone in 6 years without talking to each other. And so he's a friend as much as anything, but he's also somebody who is really, really, our initial relationship started because of our love for pressure basketball and playing Uptempo. And so, you know, he's good. So I try to stay in touch with those guys. You know, I've got on the phone with Vince Wahlberg, and I've talked to him and tried to, you know, learn from him. But immediate contacts and in the past 3 to 4 years, those guys have really influenced me. And anytime we play somebody who's good at what they do, last year we played Trinity down in San Antonio. Man, it's funny, we beat Incarnate Word to start on the open season. I should be a Division I opponent. Everybody's texting me, and, well, you know, you guys are this and that, and tell our guys, be careful, man, because we're playing a really good team here in 3 days. And it was funny, because that was on like a Tuesday night, and whenever we're driving back, we're eating pizza, everybody's excited, we're really good, we think. And Saturday, the game was at 3. By like 4:30, we were down 30 plus, and the reality had set in. It was good for our guys, because, like, hey, fellas, just so you know, like, that was Division I. These are Division III players. Like, this is a good level. So now you're seeing it. But his Coach Smith just does such a great job with his pace offensively. His synergy numbers with his offense under 4 seconds or something is off the chart. How well and how fast they play. So I'll reach out to him and talk to him. I don't, at this point, man, I don't have much ego left in me, you know, and so I'm kind of all ego.
You really,
I'm kind of egoed out.
Yeah, but it's a good nugget, though. When you're playing against, even playing against opponents, if it's your level or not, and they do something that you like, they do something that makes you feel like, I mean, I've looked over at my assistants before and go, man, that was nice. I like that. Yeah. And then have the humility, like you're talking about, to call them up. And that is a great thing about this coaches fraternity that we're a part of, is the willingness for so many to share. You know, my next question, though, is like because going back to coming to faith, brought that, you know, Hoff power style pressing. That's what we were doing with Wes Watson and McKinney, and makes or miss. We were in it, you know, read or rotate and dribble drive motion. So loving it. But then, Coach, I wanted to go faster, and so I started looking out to see who are in my opinion, the fastest of the fast. How crazy can you get this?
Yes.
And you turn to Grinnell.
Yeah.
And you turn to Greenville.
Yep. I've spoke to those guys. Yeah.
How much of that style or system are you incorporating? Do you ever dabble with the shifts? Because the shifts are extreme.
Yeah. I've dabbled with I haven't necessarily dabbled with even though I would love to. One thing me and Coach Evans talk about is a lot is how, and this is what my dad was really great at. I don't know if he meant to be, but like being resolute with what you're doing and knowing it's going to be this, and there's beauty and simplicity, and we're going to do it. And I remember talking to Grinnell, maybe the son at the time,
Coach Arsenal.
Yeah, maybe Coach Arsenal, maybe a while back, and just kind of what they did and the simplicity behind it and how good it was. I've never had the courage to just do that necessarily, but we have dabbled during the COVID year. We were having such a difficult time getting in practices. We were playing with masks on, and we were still trying to press. It was crazy. Like we were playing less games than most opponents. We were having guys. We were following the guidelines very, very strange, which I was fine with, which was good. It was just making it challenging in games, and so we were playing. I forget who we were playing. Maybe at Sul Ross or something. And we late in the game, we kind of started doing the mass stuff. Offense for defense for offense. We went from being down 6 with a minute and a half, and we won the game. And I'm like, what if we did that for 40 minutes? What if we just like constantly sub deep? That would be kind of fun and different. And let's experiment with it because it's COVID year. What does it matter at this point? And so we dabbled with it a little bit. Haven't gone back to it. I don't know if I could. I think again, it's something I think you got to be all in with. I know there was a women's coach in our league at Louisiana College, and he did it, and he had a lot of success with it. He went to multiple NCAA tournaments, and his group was fun to watch. And he was all in with it. And I know I'm not ready to be all in to that level, and so I haven't committed to it.
And I'm right where you are too, because those some of those tougher years that I've had before, I went there. I even did a parent meeting before the season about the shifts, getting parents on board. We're a 5A tap school. This is the purest style, and I believe this. It's the purest style of basketball that there is, because when you take the fear for a player of I'm on the bench, when am I going to go in? You take that away because they know there's a shift chart that you're up soon. When you take the fear of when am I going to get pulled out of the game off the table, they know they're going to come out. In my opinion, you get the fastest, most chaotic, and clear-headed players. So I witnessed it. We were 6-1 doing it, averaging 94 points a game, and the purity, man, of seeing the joy from guys 12 down, all being a part of the game. You're better players, being in. But that's where we went back to the very beginning. Can you convince them that don't look at time, look at possessions? You are playing more possessions. But Coach, I think at the high school level, it's difficult because you add in football players, right? And then all of a sudden the chemistry that you have is so important with that style. And then if some of your better players start to think, you know what, I'm not into this getting the same amount of time as 12, it fractures. And I don't think I was ever close to getting fired, but I did have a meeting with my AD after that year. And about you can't do that. And here's another thing too with that style of play. We called it wild. 2 on the ball, 2 interceptors, 1 safety, everywhere. Always, like no stopping. I loved it. I'm the kind of personality that, especially once you see it work, we were down 20 game, we won by 20.
Yeah, it's fun,
Coach, it's like I've never done crack, but I would imagine that's what it's like. Like, this is great. How can I go back? Like, that's what I felt. But the defensive side of it, this is one thing that's helped me. I think players and parents, they may not be able to see everything that we see, but they have to be able to understand to a point.
Right.
And when our football coach, whose kid played on our team, asked the kid to ask me defensively, what's our purpose? What's our goal? Do you not see it? We're turning them over 30 times a game.
Right.
And then if they're scoring, it's super quick. So we didn't even care about that. Just get the ball back. They couldn't see it, and neither could my AD. And so like you, I've just had to choose what's the fastest we can go that helps us win, but it's not to the point where we're losing a sense of what I guess what basketball is, or I don't know
what it's supposed to be, quote unquote. Yeah, we played the COVID fall that year. This was 2019. We went up to Pacific, and they were doing it. They were all in, and I remember watching on film and just being extremely concerned about how we were going to combat this, because I mean it is. And I'm watching it also kind of envious a little bit, right? Like, man, this is fun. Like this is it, And so we played them that night in the first half. They were drove us. We ended up coming back and finding a way to win, but also like we kind of had better players, that kind of helped us with that. And the system allowed him at that time to be in games, not necessarily just with us, but in general, with opponents that he probably didn't belong in games with. And I think that's the great thing. It's kind of like I don't know, I've always thought if you could do it right, it's kind of the great equalizer, right? Like it's kind of like the air raid whenever Mike Leach first got to Tech. Like that equalized the talent gap. That allowed Texas Tech to move up as high as number 2 or 3 in the country, because it spread everything out. Yeah. And it created more space. It allowed for, and it was simple. It allowed for more opportunities. It allowed, now as time has gone, teams with better player, bigger player, more athletes, whatever, got that implemented, and now that advantage was kind of gone that you had before. And so it's like, I think with that, if you have the right pieces, I think what it does, it allows you to stay in some games, and I think it also allows you to avoid losing games you shouldn't lose. Because I think it could also, like, it allows, if you have better players, I don't think it allows teams to stay in games, because you're forcing them, you're imposing your will.
I think the better team is going to win almost all the time. And if it's not them, then that's what's going to happen. But if it is them, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
But then there's also, like, if you watch some of those videos from back in the day, it's in the locker room, it's the idea of, guys, we're not going to talk about winning and losing. Hey, there's people that pay to watch you play. Let's put on a show.
That's
and
the
Pistol Pete in me, is one of my idol. Like, I love that. But again, going back to you, because behind my little plaque there, all my Grinnell books are back there. There's about 6 of them. And I even read a book about how to do it down through your junior high. It's called the Mongoose System. It's actually a brilliant basketball book on how to teach pressing shifts offense to young kids, 3rd grade all the way up. But going back to you, what defensively have you done to be able to, where you have the tempo that you want, but you're not just giving up layups, like that?
Oh, I think, well, some of it is we are a little more conservative off misses. I think, I mean, we still press, but it's usually we usually have assigned ball stops and guys filling lanes. We've done a couple of different missed shot defenses where we've kind of pressed, almost run a defensive break off of an offensive miss, where we're ball stopping, we're covering basket, ball side, we're covering spots, and then we've also run kind of a 2-2-1 off misses, because we there was a while we were running 2-2-1s on makes and misses. And I remember we went down to A&M Corpus. It was an exhibition game. We went down there that fall 2019, and we lost. But in the game, I think we forced 49 turnovers, and it was because we were just so locked into kind of our spots and where we were playing. And so we try to be really aggressive, before the catch. And then once the ball gets in half court, we're still pressuring, but we also spend a decent amount of time in practice working on half court defense. Which I don't know if that's Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. How do you help them with the mentality of, we want to take chances and help it? Because I think a lot of players, especially if they're terrified of making a mistake from their coach, if the culture is I make a mistake, I'm probably coming out or I'm done.
Yeah.
I mean, in that style, you need them to be. How do you create the aggressiveness that you want?
I think it's an everyday practice mindset. It's working on conversion sequences. It's playing 3-on-3 from a conversion space. It's 4-on-4 continuous. It's setting up a lot of your defensive drills to dictate that. But also, I think it's communication. I think it's talking to the guys about why you will come out of a game and and it's not going to be from missing a shot or necessarily taking a risk. It's going to be from not playing hard.
Yeah.
And not we just yell constantly, get ahead of the ball, sprint ahead of the ball. Like we're constantly on them about just not loafing, like getting ahead, and we want to be aggressive early, and then we always tell them let's be aggressive early, and we'll scale back. Like we can fix some of that. We can fix those uncalculated risks that are being taken. We can have you understand, okay, this is why you want to go here on a blindside trap, and why we want to rotate behind it, and how we need to fill spaces on that. But early on, we're not going to get caught in correcting that. Like we're not going to correct guys running through a lane at the wrong time, or getting out of position on inbounds, or maybe bumping on an inbound and fouling. Like we're not going to. The first 2 weeks of practice, we're not correcting any of that. We're just trying to get them to think about one thing, and that's just playing as hard as you can play on defense, and making sure we try to protect the paint once we get across half court, and then offensively getting to the paint and playing unselfish. And so I think one, on the offensive side, thing that has been helpful for some of our players is we don't necessarily. I don't think guys feel pressure to make shots. I think it's maybe the same thing with defense. Like, I don't think they feel pressure about not taking chances, because we usually don't sub unless you are taking bad shots, or unless you're, unless you're, if you haven't put the time in to get the shots. But we're not. It's I think it's emphasis, and for us, so much about what we emphasize is, are you playing hard? And that's step one, and then we're going to define that, what we're looking for, and we're going to show you with guys who have been here, this is what it looks like, and this is what's expected. Now, I think if you get too technical too early, you can you take away some of that aggressiveness.
That's a good point.
I think if they're thinking about stepping here, coming here, my which foot's up, which foot's back, I think if you can kind of really stunt growth. And so it's like, no, let's show what our footwork looks like, but let's not harp on it. Let's harp on, you weren't sprinting back to get ahead, or you didn't come over and trap and come up and take a chance, or that ball went to the basket and you weren't on your guy immediately making the inbound tough. That's in our system, that's a loss. That's like giving up a layup. If we allow the ball to go through the net and they can bring it in uncontested, that's an L. And so it's like, that you have to, we want to celebrate that. We want to value that. We want to make sure they know that is like big to what we're doing. And again, that's where my assistant helps, and he's able to put together some statistical numbers that show them clearly. It's not just because we want to, but it leads to these outcomes.
Yeah, it's kind of like full speed effort, but with bad footwork, is way better than perfect footwork half speed.
Yeah, if you're going to press,
you'll take that. Yeah, like you'll take the first one all day long, and because you can work with. Yeah,
you can fix it. You can fix. You can show film. You can bring them in.
Yeah.
You can. You're an individual. You can fix that. What you can't fix is somebody who does. If you're gonna try to play this way, you can't fix somebody who's not understanding the idea of conversion, and the idea of making inbounds difficult, and the idea of sprint and get ahead of the ball. Like, if you don't do that, little things, and showing your go, we talk a lot about, basically jabbing and retreating off the ball. So we're constantly, looks like five guys are guarding one, and we're constantly foot faking, just little things that, like, these are pillars that we want to be good at. And then we'll really try to dive into, which is why early on, I think it's part of the reason we struggle early in the season a lot of times, because we're so focused on that part of it that it probably leaves us a little less prepared in other aspects of our game.
One more thing. So offensively, because you attack the paint so well, and I would imagine the pace you're playing in space more, you probably utilize the 3-point line pretty well. Is there a certain amount of attempts you're trying to get every game, or is it just when they're there, take them? You don't focus too much. Yeah,
it's when they're there. We've really tried to work a lot recently on the offensive side of playing off two, a lot of Nashes and Barclays, even though I've been told I need to update those names because our players don't probably know who Barclay is and don't know Nash.
They need to adjust, Coach. Those names are fine.
So we do, and we work. The thing, and I think you would understand this as a former guard and guy who handled and played the way you did, that the idea of, like, we want our guys off the ball to know where to go based off penetration. So we will X different spots on the floor. We'll put squares for like spacing, where we're going for our initial spacing, because we have our offensive flow, as we call it, space, action, movement. We want to make sure every time we're on offense, we have checklists. We get our spacing right, whatever our action is, we execute, and then we move based off that action. And so we're constantly breaking that down. And so we'll have our boxes for our spacing, and then we have different X's on the floor for our action or for our movement, so that once we create an advantage, the other four guys know where to go, which I think really empowers the ball handler. Because if I have an advantage, and so many times you hear coaches talk, and I used to talk about, get to your spot. Okay, we have an advantage, play in space and do a one more. But I don't think, like, I want to construct that so our guys understand what that looks like. And then once they know what that looks like, let the flow of play happen, but create structure in that flow. Because I don't know if guys can create that structure on their own out of advantages. So we want to really, really spend time, and we spend a ton of time in practice working on getting to advantage spots. And we work a lot on the push-pull idea of the ball is dribbled at you, pushing away, but dribbled away, pulling behind, and filling behind on all penetrations. And we really, whenever we get flowing, we've had some offensive success with doing minimal of actions, but being pretty good at times of getting to our, we yell at knowledge and get to your X's,
get the spots. Well,
and get to these designated spots, and don't watch. Like, the ball's dribbled, you have a job to do. When that ball is dribbled away from you, you are constantly moving, but moving with intention.
That's right.
Because I don't want to tell them just move and get open.
Coach, you don't want to have Will Ferrell going rover, in the middle of the court,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Semi-pro.
Yes, you don't want to have Jackie Moon.
That's right.
And so
I'm going rover, Coach. You will not go rover.
You want to minimize rover.
So
we spend, so a lot of our offense is based on that, and we've really adopted that the last 2 years, and I think it's been something that I think, again, I'm always looking to tweak and get better at. But during the pandemic, I was able to spend a lot of time, like a lot of coaches, studying and getting on Zooms and being around people who could help me with some of this, or watching people, and not necessarily being around them, but watching people and getting better. So I believe in that, because I think that movement stuff is applicable to anything you do. I think everything you do in basketball, you're trying to get an advantage. Whatever you run offensively, it's just when you have the advantage, do your players know what to do and where to go? And if they do, then I feel like offensively, you're going to have a really good opportunity to be successful.
I think one thing I've learned from running less plays, but putting concepts together for players to make plays, is that it's not as simple as just letting them attack or be aggressive. The organization and the structure that you have to truly play fast and free, with players just creating on their own. If there's no structure, they will be all over each other in a heartbeat, 100%. And advantages will disappear.
100%.
So, Coach, it takes a lot of control to play fast.
And it takes, we say we want to try to structure every unstructured situation. So whether it's turnovers, whether it's advantage, whether it's offensive rebound, whatever is unstructured, we want the guys to know where to get. We don't want to become structured from the standpoint of we're setting up and organizing, but we want to have structure behind that. so that I don't think, again, like you said, I don't think you can keep an advantage if you don't. I think you're going to shrink gaps. You're going to run into each other. You're not going to have the spacing you need.
I don't cut at the wrong time, make the wrong read.
Yep.
Yeah. Coach, I'm going to steal that. Being structured and unstructured moments like that. That's really good. It's really good. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.